Thanks everybody for joining again. We have another alumni panel featuring two of our great, awesome alums, Emmanuel Cruz and Kimberly Fung. So we're gonna start off with just having them give a brief introduction. So thanks you two for joining us. Emmanuel and Kimberly, if you can just start off by introducing yourselves, if you could say what school you went to, what you studied, and what your current role is. I'll let you two decide who can go first.
I'll take the jump. First of all, thanks so much, Kaylin. Great to see you again. Rest of the LifeSci team, Kimberly, you too. So I'm Emmanuel. I'm the head of technology for A2A Pharmaceuticals. We're a small startup, around 5 people. I got my start in the University of South Florida in Tampa. I majored in chemistry. And then I got a master's degree in computer science from Cornell Tech on Roosevelt Island. And yeah, the rest has been history. I had a great internship experience, and hopefully you guys have the same lined up.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all. My name is Kimberly Fung. I'm currently working as a medical affairs associate at IMPRINT Publication Science. It's a small medical communications agency. I got my start at the Macaulay Honors College at Hunter College, where I studied biochemistry and music. And then I went on to get my PhD in chemistry at the CUNY Graduate Center, also at Hunter College. And I did my internship at MD Calc. So I think, the internship experience really helped me get to where I am today. And I think I'll touch more on that later. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. So just to start off, I'm curious how you felt your schoolwork prepared you for your internship, or if you felt there were certain things you wish you learned in school that would have helped you in your internship more. I'll pass it back to Kimberly.
Sure. So, since I did the internship when I was in graduate school, I felt like for the internship, it was mainly kind of these transferable skills, because in grad school, since I did a PhD, it was a very research heavy sort of program where I would be I did research in mice and cancer models. So it was like a completely different thing. But I think what really helped me was sort of being able to think about problems, because in research, you're really identifying a research problem and you're trying to solve it. And I think it's obviously a little different for companies. But again, I think something that they had wanted is that, they would give you a task and they would want you to think about how to solve it and how you can work on it to benefit the company. So while there's a little bit of a switch, I think that kind of scientific method and mentality really helps. And obviously, I think some of the other skills, such as, being able to write, analyzing data, doing a literature review, being able to read and interpret things. I think those are obviously some other skills that, we have all grown, from undergrad to even graduate school.
Yeah, the scientific method is a great point. Yeah, the amount of times that I've thrown myself in a circle, just making the same mistake, definitely helps when you can learn from previous data. So for me, I think school gave me really strong foundational tools, and especially in my chemistry background, I got a great chemistry education. I knew how molecules worked. But I think projects were what really took my understanding to a practical level. And those were both personal projects, but where it really took off was in my master's program. It was very project-based, where I had project deliverables and I had to work on a team with different people and build an idea that utilized my understanding of chemistry. And I think that the application, school is great and it definitely prepares you, but to make it something that is truly valuable in industry, you kind of have to apply it through different projects. And that's what I found in my experience.
Yeah, so going off of that, hearing that you had specific projects, did you find that you needed to be a lot more self-guided in choosing projects? So you had projects in your master's program, but did you feel like you needed to work on things outside of school that helped you with your internship or help you get an internship?
I think so. I think what got me my internship was undergraduate research, funny enough, because people would always ask me when I'd go into the lab, they'd be like, oh, like, do you get paid for that? I'd be like, no. and but somehow by having that undergraduate research experience, it allowed me to, like I said, apply to a project what I was doing from someone. I was surrounded by people that were much smarter than I was, and I still am. Um, and by having that, I think that's what separated my resume, is because it's one thing to know about chemistry and know like what molecules do, but to know how difficult it is to carry out, a Wittig reaction at negative 78 degrees Celsius is a whole nother story of like, being able to understand what people are looking for in industry, which is the ability to apply the things which you've learned without having to train you.
Yeah, that's great. So both of you received full-time offers after your internship, which is awesome. I'm curious, did you feel like that was a goal that you had going into the internship program? Did you have any other expectations as you entered your internships through the program?
So I think going into my internship, I think it was a little different because it was kind of a stressful period for me during that time, because I was in the last year of my PhD program and I was also trying to juggle writing my thesis, finishing up my projects, and then also the internship. And at that time, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, because I just felt like I needed some direction. And I think the internship kind of really gave me that confidence to really explore what I wanted to do. So I think, after the internship, I think going in, I think I just really wanted to hone in on what I wanted for myself, because I think graduate school, once I kind of discovered that research wasn't really the path that I was looking for, I needed to pivot quickly. And I think that internship just kind of set me on the road. And I realized that I actually wanted to be more involved in medical writing in particular, because the internship kind of highlighted, different therapeutic areas, since MD Calc was there are a reference, they're like a top medical reference company, a startup company that develops calculators that help doctors make clinical decisions. So I think with that internship, I think it really helped me kind of hone in on that medical writing piece. And once I identified that that was what I wanted to do, I was able to quickly apply for jobs that were focused on that area. And then I think that's what allowed me to get the full-time position that I have now.
Yeah, I think the internship offer was definitely one of my favorite opportunities. As I graduated with a computer science master's degree, most of what my career services department was pushing me towards was like very large software companies that have quotas to fill, that make deals with universities to attract good students. Um, and LifeSci NYC, their internship definitely felt more in line with what my own principles are, what my own interests are in the industry. I didn't want to throw away my chemistry experience because I love chemistry. And what it did was it was the only route that gave me a lens to see companies that were blending these two fields that I like so much, which are machine learning and chemistry. So by having that blend, when I got the internship, I was like, okay, let me try this out. But then once I kind of got my feet in, I just fell in love with the different pharma conversations and the larger impact of what the work could do in oncology.
Thank you. So can you, both of you, go into a little bit of detail into how the full-time offer came about? Was it something that you checked in with your supervisors about? Did they give you specific feedback about why they wanted to offer you a full-time position afterwards, or anything else that you want to share about that.
So it was a little different for me. So after my internship, at the time, I think they weren't really looking for someone with my background because I think they wanted to focus more on kind of technology, and my background was in chemistry. So I think they told me that if I was interested, I could contact them a few months later about part-time opportunities. And I think another intern who was working with me also at MD Calc, Mohammed Ali, he ended up working there, extending his internship to part-time. I think for me, I ended up having to make some decisions due to my PhD program requirements. So I did not end up extending my internship. So what happened afterwards was I actually just decided to focus on my thesis, and I finished my PhD program, and then I started applying for full-time positions. So I think that was a little different, but I think that internship program actually really helped because during my interview, they certainly asked me about it, since I applied for medical writing positions where they're really interested in people who have backgrounds in different therapeutic areas. So for them, they were really curious, as to what I did during my internship and about the different therapeutic areas I was able to explore while I was there.
Yeah, so the company I interned for, A2A Pharma, they were 4 people at the time, 3 full-time. And I think the reason why I might have gotten the internship offer was because I don't know, it's difficult to wrap up, but I would just say, like, my ability to be open to coaching, I think that was the best quality of, like, I came in, like, I know absolutely nothing here, but I want to learn everything. And then they took very well. And then I did good work as far as, like, trying to overachieve the objectives that were given to me. And thankfully they wanted to keep me.
Yeah, so can you both talk about how your internship is different from your current role? So I know you're both in different situations. Emmanuel, you're still working at your company that you had your internship in, and Kimberly working at a different company. So can you just talk about the difference in what your role was as an intern versus what it is now? Or if there's any overlap you want to highlight too.
So at MD Calc, I think they organized the internship. So they gave me several projects. So I was, simultaneously working on, I would say around like three projects. I was working on these guideline summaries. I was also working on, they developed these clinical calculators to help, physicians more easily diagnose or, make decisions for their patients. So the internship program, they had many different, you were doing multiple things at once. And I think that's also something that I do in my current role. It's being able to balance time, I think, because, you're trying to balance between like meetings and actual tasks. And I think that's also kind of something that's similar to, real life work, because in school, it's absolutely different. You're kind of on your own time, and you're not really thinking about how what you're doing impacts other people. And you're not, you're working more for yourself and less as a team. So I think that's, something that, I was really doing during my internship. It was that combination of, time management, project management, and also teamwork and making sure you get your deliverables on time.
Yeah, thank you.
My internship project it started out very, very simple and condensed of a task, because I have never done anything in cheminformatics before, which is, data reasoning based on, assay, what molecules do. So first, my internship comprised of getting up the learning curve, which is reading publications, understanding what the controversies are. Some people say that what I'm trying to do doesn't work. Some people say it works really well. And so I listened to the latter. And it started out as just building different predictors in different algorithmic packages, such as like PyTorch, TensorFlow, Keras, scikit-learn, just seeing what worked really. And it ended up working, which is why I think that they like me at the time. And then when it converted into a full-time offer, the responsibilities just like, quadrupled. They were like, okay, like this is great what you did in this like small sliver of what our company does, but now we want you to do that. We want you to bring that same like, kind of innovation or like R&D into all these different verticals of our company. So that instead of just machine learning, now it was like, okay, how can we increase our cloud stack and get our computation power higher? And then it was like, okay, now I need to learn how to do that. And in different subsectors like that.
Thanks. So I'm hearing we've heard from about your previous internship experience, your current role. So now I'm curious where you all see yourselves going next. Any specific projects or things that you're interested in working on in the future?
So, I mean, I've only been at my current role for a year, so I'm really, in my role, I do a lot of developing of clinical content. And what I mean by that is that I develop a lot of presentations and publications that are focused in specific disease areas. So for me, I really am hoping to continue to grow in my role since it's, still a new position. So I hope to obviously, work there longer and gain more responsibilities and also learn about more therapeutic areas. But I think in terms of medical writing, I think it's kind of more of like a vertical, you're doing similar things, but you're learning to do them quicker and you're learning to do them better, and you're also developing a greater range of content. So instead of just content that is for internal training programs, so our clients are often pharmaceutical companies, I would like to work on a greater range of projects, and sometimes these can include external projects that target different healthcare professionals. So I think again, it's really just kind of trying to explore a greater range of projects.
I think about that a lot, where I'd want to go next. I really like my company, so that's whatever it is, they'll probably be a part of it over the next couple of years. So where my skills have grown is going to be a great example of where I want to go next. So far, I have a much better understanding of pharmaceutical development and machine learning. So where I originally started on this path, like what motivated me to get into this is I have a huge personal investment and interest in antipsychotic medication. So things that treat different mental health illnesses, including depression. And that's really where I want to go. I want to enter that field. So I want to move from oncology towards these more this newer field of medication, just because that's where I find vast interest. They're both very important fields, but I'm going to start gravitating towards there, I think.
That's great. So going back to the internship program, I'm curious, have you kept any connections with other alumni or other participants in the program? If you could just talk about that, either of you. And if not, then that's fine too. You can say, I don't talk to anyone.
I wish I kept in contact with Kimberly. And I think I definitely made a lot of friends over the internship program, and it made the city a lot less lonely because I would run into them on the train sometimes or even in the office. But COVID happened and everybody just kind of fell off the face of the earth. But for a time being, yeah, I did. There's a lot of really cool people that I kept in contact with that worked in the same building, and we would hang out occasionally. So.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with Emmanuel since we were part of the same cohort. So yeah, I mean, I think we had a good thing going. Like we had a WhatsApp group and we like would, chat with other interns and, hang out quite a lot during the program. But I think it was, after the program, I think everyone is, doing a lot. So it ended up, being difficult to communicate. I think we did want to meet virtually, but that didn't happen. So I think, again, that's something I wish, we would do more of, but hopefully in the future.
Yeah, and that's sort of a transition. So just sort of final questions. I'm curious how the pandemic has affected your current job. I mean, Kimberly, you've been at your job for a year, so I'm guessing that you started right around the time that shutdowns happened here. So if you could just talk about how working remotely has affected your organization, if there's been any changes to your work, and then also if you have any tips on working remotely.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty interesting experience because I actually interviewed during COVID. So, at that time they had to transition from doing in-person interviews to all video interviews. So I've actually never met any of my colleagues in person. It was literally all virtual. So I did two video interviews, that consisted of 3 people at a time, and that's how I met them. So I think the worst part about it was, at first I felt very lonely because, I didn't know anyone, and it feels more awkward to, just, chat someone on the computer or just to ask for, like to ask, to chat over video chat because like I didn't know anything about them. And like you're getting started at a new company, and usually, if you were going to an office, you would at least, be able to talk, before you get started. So I think that was something that was quite difficult. And that wasn't, I didn't really know, how the company worked outside of COVID since that's all I've ever seen. But I would have to say that remote working has been relatively smooth. And I think most of my colleagues have also transitioned into it well, because luckily for us, a lot of what we do is on the computer. So it doesn't actually require a lot of in-person contact. I mean, the only reason why we would need to, meet in person would particularly be for, I think, meetings, internal meetings, but a lot of external meetings, since we work with clients all over the globe, a lot of it is actually done virtually. So I think, it hasn't had quite as large of an impact on the particular industry that I'm working
Um, it's had its pros and cons, I guess. Previously, in the before time when I worked for A2A, I think where we kind of got hit the hardest was in our like team camaraderie and our culture, because we used to, we were a team of 4 or 5 people, and very diverse people. Like, we're not all like 22-year-old near recent graduates. So it really was great when we could all go out to eat together and just connect as individuals, and discuss those projects that aren't important enough to bring up during a Zoom call when everyone's main priority is getting off the Zoom call. So that was tough. And then over the year, I actually jumped over to Cambridge just in time, coming back to New York City soon, hopefully. Um, but only now are we starting to see the after effects of COVID, kind of being like, okay, there's a few people here who, like, clearly it's been all but work. Like, there was definitely no more fun time. I very few times have we had the opportunity to connect as, like, individuals. So right now we're working on a way to build back that culture virtually, and also getting our office space back so we can all meet up in the city.
Thanks. So we are getting close to the point where I'm going to open up questions for our interns. I have a couple just rapid fire questions, and all the interns listening, you can start asking questions in the chat that we'll read off, or you can go off mute in just a moment. So just quickly, what is one thing that prepared you most for your current job? I'll start with that, and then I'll go to the next one.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really the scientific method, just because, what I'm doing is closely related to what I did in grad school.
Very similar, just in different words. I would say the ability to fail and not blame yourself. You failed because it's hard, not because it has anything to do with you. And I think that motivation.
And do you have one regret? We asked our alumni in yesterday's panelists too, but do you have one regret about your education or training at this point, or one thing you wish you could have changed?
I actually wish I had gone to a study abroad program when I was in college, because, in my current job, we work with a lot of international clients. So it would have been really nice to learn another language.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it would be to enjoy the city more. Because when you're working, the city takes a very different form. You're kind of constrained to the city before 9 o'clock and then after 5 o'clock. But yeah, it's a really wonderful place.
Okay, and last question. I see that we have one raised hand, so I'll call in Seilu in just a second. Last question is, do you have any advice you would give to our current cohort of interns?
I mean, I think that, starting an internship is already a really big thing, but I think, a piece of advice is probably, I think, have confidence in yourself and your decisions, because I think you know best what you want. So I think for me, oftentimes with grad students, we are often pushed into this kind of postdoctoral role that people expect you to go in a certain direction. But if something really doesn't feel right for you, I think you should absolutely be confident in yourself and be willing to explore other avenues.
All right, thank you both for answering all those questions. I think we have some time left, so I'm gonna hand it over. Any interns, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself or type in the chat any questions that you have.
Hey, I do have a question for Emmanuel. I know you have a knowledge of computer science in your current position right now. Do you use more of that knowledge in your position? Because I know you have skills of PyTorch. I hear you mention it. Do you use that a lot in your current position?
That's a great question, and 110%. I was just kind of deliberating this, but because of my formal education in computer science, and understanding the details, for example, well, not like a PhD would, but enough details, for example, like, distinguishing between optimizers, learning how to handle long tail data sets, just like semi-advanced issues that it allows me, it gives me the perspective to understand if someone actually knows what they're talking about. So if we hired a machine learning intern, these are some of the questions that I would expect them to have some understanding of. And if they don't, then, so that's how I would use it as a leader. But I also, at the same time, use it for really in new ways. For example, when we deal with low data problems, I pull different computer science image classification algorithms to that. For example, there's this algorithm called SMOTE, which is a way to upsample your data set for classification tasks. And from everyone that I've met in chem informatics, they're like, never heard of it. But that's because I come from a deeper computer science background.
All right, we have a question from Yi. So question for Kimberly, what is the major reason for you to leave research?
So I think with research, I think what you'll notice is that there is a lot of, trial and error. And for me, that was quite difficult because, you would get a project and you would spend a lot of time. And these are not just, short-term projects in your PhD program. These are, year-long projects. But I think for me, it was really difficult to try and experiment again and again and to fail. And even though, like I would expect that, but I think, each time you would try to get different, insights into why it failed. But I think eventually it just became really grating. And I think, for me, just transitioning into this role, I feel so much better because, you know, you feel appreciated, you know, for the things that you're doing. And for me, I think just being able to, you know, work on specific smaller projects, I felt more satisfaction in them instead of, you know, this kind of roller coaster ride to, you know, to the successful result.
Yeah, that's a great response. And we have another question in the chat for Emmanuel. How did you get into bioinformatics or cheminformatics, and how do you recommend taking the first steps into the field?
It's a great question. It's kind of an arcane knowledge. Not a lot of people, it seems hard to figure out where. I would say two fantastic areas to look. One is Kaggle. Kaggle is a machine learning competition website where they publish different data sets that you can look at how other people took these molecules and then turn them into, will this cause cancer? Will this not cause cancer? And so you can learn from those people who've already done it. And then secondly, I'm not sure how much of a reader you are, but the literature is absolutely booming in this field. And if you ever just Google like cheminformatics, you know, learning or something, then you'll find some fantastic articles and websites that help you understand, okay, how do I represent a molecule to a computer?
All right, any other questions so far?
I do have a question. What would you recommend? Kind of advice would you give someone who would go into a bio field who does not have that knowledge or did not come from that background? Someone from a software field who will be working in those bio field.
Kimberly?
Okay, so so you're from the software field, but you're looking to kind of transition into the
No,
field?
it's not transition, but let's say a company that focus on those areas hired you, but you will be working in software application for them. What kind of recommendation do you have, like advice?
I mean, I think some advice is kind of, even if it's not something that you have been doing previously, I think it's sort of, you know, do your research. I think if you're able to emphasize how these things overlap, sort of like, you know, for me, even though I was doing something completely in my different in my internship, I was able to pick up on the pieces, like skills that I already had that I felt like were really useful to them, or like things that I felt like even if I didn't understand, you know, all the pieces of a project, I would certainly ask them for advice on, you know, like what would you recommend that I could do to touch up on this area that I'm unfamiliar with. But I think obviously during the internship, I think there's a combination, you know, before the internship, it's, you know, trying to do, you know, your own research, and, you know, that way you feel confident when you go into it, you know, that you have, you know, as much background as you can gain. And then when you're going into, I think really kind of utilizing the resources you have and connecting with mentors.
Yeah, did you want to add anything, Emmanuel, or should we go over to another question?
Oh, I think that was great. Yeah, you aren't expected to know everything. You're expected to know the little slice of information that you come with, and then the rest is piled on.
Thanks. All right, so we still have a few minutes left. Oh, I see Anita has a hand raised, so I'll pass it over to you, Anita.
Thank you. Hi, Kimberly and Emmanuel. Thanks for coming back. I have a unrelated question to your scientific background. What do you like to do in your spare time outside of your professional pursuits?
Yeah, I think my interests have really changed. I mean, you know, unfortunately before COVID, I was actually really interested in, you know, trying out different workout classes. So I obviously, I still try to, you know, jog and run outside. I used to participate in, you know, like some races with the New York Road Runners Club. And I was really hoping to, you know, run a marathon, but I think now I'm just kind of trying to gear up and train for maybe a smaller race first and then gear up for that.
Oh, go ahead, Caitlin.
Oh, I just said super impressive.
Yeah, running is not something I do. Yeah, I'm really great at picking up like little hobbies and then quickly forgetting about them. But I've been pretty into fighting classes, so like different like hand-to-hand combat type things. Pretty interesting.
So,
Other than that, baking sourdough bread.
yeah, one of the sort of extra activities we had in the summer last year was the science of sourdough, and we had Amy from Amy Spread speak about that.
So I have a question. Do you have any pointers on how to bake a good sourdough bread? So I've struggled.
It's all in the starter. I would say, keep feeding that starter till it explodes, and then also make sure you stir. Make sure you stir. You don't want it to be too liquidy, and you don't want it to be too thick. You got to find it out for yourself, though.
How often are you feeding your starter?
Depends on the cycle, but before baking, every day, and then the day before twice a day, or 2 days before twice a day.
And how bubbly does it get?
I'm gonna have to start charging you for all these details.
Yeah.
I would say it at least doubles in volume, if not more. And then it should pass the float test, if you've heard of that.
I've never passed the float test. It's both with me swimming and making sourdough, I just sink.
This summer we'll have a boot camp for that.
Yes.
All right, any last questions so far?
I have a point if there's no more questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So did you guys do the portion on imposter syndrome? No?
No,
Okay.
not this year.
Sure. So yeah, I just want to make sure that the students out there know, I mentioned it at some point before, but if you're going into the health sciences or life sciences, this is a field, it's probably one of the most like difficult fields you could ever imagine, because you're making inferences off of mechanisms that we don't understand. Like we don't know what causes cancer. We don't know what causes DNA tautomerization. And anything that you study, we really don't know at the end of the day. We don't even know like where electrons are, if they exist. So I would say like, if you run into a tough project or if someone gives you a hard time, it's most likely going to happen. Just understand that what you're working on is very hard and you should be proud of yourselves for that. That you're actually in this field and, working on like, these crazy machines that drive us. So just keep going and keep your head up.
I totally agree with Emmanuel. I think imposter syndrome it's so real because sometimes you think that it's only you and it turns out that everyone around you is also thinking the same thing. So I think even, even in grad school, like you think that you may be the only one with imposter syndrome. And it turns out that, all your colleagues and other research students are thinking the same. So I totally agree. I think, you guys are already, getting started on a new internship. And I think that's a really big step in trying to, develop your career. So agreed. Keep going. And I think you guys are already, have the right start to your journey.
Yeah, those are great final messages. So I think we are at the end of this panel. Thank you both again so much for joining us and sharing about your experiences. I'm going to pass it over to Anita and we're going to have a quick break after that. But thank you guys again.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up that point. So panelists, if you would be willing to stay for a couple more minutes, and interns, if you want to imagine that we're in a room and walk up to the panelists and ask them questions. You're invited to stick around. If you want to take a break, you can take an early break, and please come back just before 1:30, where we'll have our fireside chat with Richard Resnick from Curator. But if you want to stick around and ask panelists a couple questions, feel free.
Thanks, Anita.
Thank you.
Great.
I
see,
have
Sailu,
a
I knew you had questions.
Sorry. I have a question for Emmanuel. Do you still work on side project? Because I know I enjoy working on side project because kind of give me the power of expressing myself and working on different projects. Do you still do it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got a this hardware corner of my room.
Yeah.
Let me see. So let me turn off this. Whoops.
Do you have a water-cooled computer?
I do, but it's about to be replaced with an air-cooled. I'm not happy about it, but that's what I had to choose from. But yeah.
Are you into
so
Bitcoin?
I love Bitcoin. I'm a big believer, but I have a 3D printer, and then I also do some hardware stuff with Arduino boards. So yeah, you have to keep doing stuff, and or else you'll slow down. But yeah, I think you'll definitely.
Wait, how about the Raspberry Pi?
What about it? Yep.
I mean, you don't use that one, or because you have an Arduino?
I do. I get started with Arduino, and then I'm working. I used to code I coded a stock market scraper that ran on a Raspberry Pi, so I wouldn't have to have it take up a thread on my CPU on my main computer. But anyway, I digress.
Have you successfully mined any Bitcoin?
I haven't mined anything. I wish I did, and I'll try to keep this as crypto neutral as possible. But yeah, I've definitely dabbled in the field.
Not crypto neutral at all, but do you are you interested in any other coins and blockchain other than Bitcoin?
Oh, I love blockchain. And I'm very interested in data and the medical field. And I think blockchain is going to revolutionize how both of those things are done, how they play together. As far as security and proof of work and data access, blockchain is a fantastic solution. And then, yes, there are a lot of coins that I believe in, but I will not mention them because that'll get out of hand.
You built your own 3D printer, or you bought it?
Oh, I bought it. But no more orthogonal questions. This is about what I see and your internship making you guys successful.
No problem.
I think Nassim, are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Kimberly and Emmanuel. Thanks for the talk and your helpful comments. I just have a quick question from Kimberly because I just saw that you're also graduated from chemistry from CUNY, and you were researching in inorganic chemistry, right?
Yes, you look familiar to me.
Yeah, and because I work with Professor Stephen O'Brien, and I just saw that you know him on LinkedIn. I was wondering maybe you had also the same mentor.
Oh no, I was mentored by Dr. Brian Zeglis, but I actually did a rotation in Dr. O'Brien's lab.
Nice, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I know Rob Collison who.
Yeah, I think my situation is very similar to you because I'm in the hopefully last semester of PhD. So, but I really wanted to do an internship, and my PI, he's really nice. And he also told me, yeah, take your time and do the internship, then you can work on your thesis and dissertation in the fall. But did you have time to also work on your dissertation while you were doing internship, or I don't think I can do both.
It was really hard because I would go to the internship during the day and I would have to go to the lab at night and on the weekends.
Yeah.
So, for my mentor, it was like his condition that I continue to run these experiments that I needed to get my thesis done. But I don't think much of the writing happened during my internship at all. I think it really happened in the months afterwards. And I just kind of like secluded myself and like took those few months to just write and do nothing else.
Yeah. The good thing is I'm almost done with my experiment, so it's just the writing part.
Look, I think it's really going to be, you at the library. I mean, now it's probably you at home and just, really taking, like scheduling blocks of time to really like write out like these large chunks. But again, if you have written, papers, manuscripts before, you can pull them in.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That was nice meeting you.
It was nice meeting you. Good luck.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Emmanuel and Kimberly, for joining us more than once. We love having you back, hearing from you. I hope things, as we transition back to, I forgot, I don't know if Kaylin, if you asked, are you going to be, do you have a plan for going back to the office?
That's actually, we just got an email this week saying that our office was planning on reopening in September. So they're actually thinking of doing like a hybrid plan. So they're, you would have Monday and Fridays where you would be working remotely, and then you would go into the office from Tuesdays through Thursday. But again, I think since it's like a global, the company, our company is kind of, it's owned by a larger company, and like, the multiple layers of companies that own agencies, that kind of situation. But yeah, since it's global, I think, we'll also have to discuss this internally, since, each agency within the larger agency works differently. But yeah, that seems like that will be the initial plan.
Pretty much the same. We don't have an office right now, so we're gonna have to crash the Hilton or something. We'll see.
I'm sure biolabs or any one of the real estate, healthcare real estate places would love to have you.
Thank you. Be happy to set up a conversation if you know anybody.
Hey, Rich.
If you're interested, we know all of them and we're happy to connect you.
We were at NYU Biolabs. We'll probably go back there, but we'll see. We'll see what
Linus is the new executive director. Is awesome.
Yeah, I might know her.
She's speaking tomorrow, I believe, at one of our panels tomorrow for boot camp. If you want to come back, we'll share the link.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much. And to everyone else, we're going on break. It's a short break because we have Richard Resnick coming up at 1:30.